Now we come to our second unit, and this is the supply and demand. As we know that the economics is a powerful tool for explaining each changes in economic environment, and it is called the theory of supply and demand. The theory shows that the supply depends on the consumer preferences, product prices, while the supply depends on the cost of the commodities. The increase in the price of the product may lead to the decrease in demand, and increase in the price of commodity may lead to the rise in the quantity supplied. So let's we talk about the demand schedule. The demand schedule, as you all know, that the consumer tends to buy less at the higher price. The consumer tends to buy less commodities at the higher price. We all know that. So therefore, it is inversely related to the quantity supplied. So price of the commodity is inversely related to the quantity demanded. So when the price of the commodity rises, the demand tends to fall, and this is the general rule. So nothing to be to discuss more about it, because as we know that the price of any commodity rises, the demand actually falls. So this is the demand. The basic thing is that higher the price, lower will be the quantity demanded, and lower the price, higher will be the quantity demanded. किसी चीज की प्राइस अगर कम होती है तो उसकी डिमांड ज्यादा रहेगी, और प्राइस कम रहेगी तो उसकी डिमांड भी ज्यादा होगी. So डिमांड कर्व. This is demand curve, and here we have made the graphical representation and the relationship between the quantity and price. So here axis we have quantity, but means suppose the price of 1 kg, the price of 10 kg apples, the price at 100, the price at 100, 60 kg is demanded. When the price rises, it's 200, the quantity demanded diminishes, like 20 kg or 30 kg. So price rises, quantity demanded falls. So there's a downward sloping demand curve. This is called the downward sloping demand curve, which shows the inverse relationship between the price and quantity. Law of the downward sloping demand curve: when the price of a commodity is raised, buyers tend to buy less. And similarly, when price is lowered, other things being constant, quantity being demand increases. So what are the forces behind the demand curve? What are the factors which shift the demand curve from downward and upward? So first is the average income. Normally, if the average income of the person rises, they tend to purchase more. It is logically that when the person's income rises, they tend to purchase more. Second is the size of the market. When size of the market grows, the quantity demanded will rise. When size of the market grows, the quantities which are available less before will be available more. So the consumers tend to buy more when the size of the market grows. Availability of the related goods. Availability of the related goods. When the price of, or when the availability of the petrol rises, the person tend to buy more the automobile vehicles. A particularly important connection exists among the substitute goods, with ones that tend to perform the same function, such as apples and oatmeals, pens and pencils, small cars and large cars. So demand for particular good A tends to be low if the price of the substitute good is B. If the price of the petrol rises, then the vehicles or automobiles that use the diesel as a fuel will rise. Another is a taste and preferences. Taste and preferences, variety of the cultural and historical influences. It means they may reflect genuine or psychological or physiological needs. For the richer class, the purchase of the car may rise. So taste and preferences mean there are different kinds of people which have different tastes and different preferences. Special influences. Special influences tends to increase the price or tends to increase the current demand in a particular occasion. जैसे कि जब बारिश हो तो अम्ब्रेला की प्राइस बढ़ती है, जब गर्मी की मौसम आए तो एयर कंडीशनर की डिमांड बढ़ती है. So these are the special influences which affect the demand of the goods. So the forces behind the demand curve, we summarize that the average income rises, quality demand rises, size of the market grows, demand rises, availability of related goods, taste and preferences, and spatial influences. Shift in the demand curve. Sometimes it happens that whenever the price of the goods rises or the price of the goods increases, the demand also increases. So other things being held constant. For the example, in the year of the 2006 or 2008, there was a boom in economic. There was a boom in economics, so there was a powerful income effect on the demand of the automobiles, and this means that the quantity of the automobiles demanded at each price will rise. So the demand curve shifted from left to right. So this is our old demand curve, where at the price of the 500, only 10 kg quantity was 10 kg quantity was demanded, but due to the shift in the demand or due to some other economic forces, the price of the price of the particular good rose to 500, but the quantity demanded rose from 10 kg to 20 kg. So overall demand curve shifts from DD to dash D dash D dash. These are the shift in the demand. Shift in the demand. Now we talk about the supply curve. So as a rule of the supply curve, the rule of the supply is that when the price of the particular good rises, the suppliers tend to supply more. It means more quantity is supplied and rising the prices. So quantity supplied has direct relation with the rise in the prices. Other things being held constant. And this applies also to the laws of diminishing returns, which we will talk later. The supply curve. If we draw the supply curve, the demand curve slopes downwards from left to right, but the supply curve rises from left to right, but upward location. This shows that the price is measured at y-axis and quantity of apples is measured at x-axis. So you can see that at the price of 10 rupees, there's nothing is more when the price is 20 kg, the quantity of apples supplied grows more than 5 million. At the price of the 30, the quantity supplied is 10 million. At the price of the 40, the quantity supplied is much. It means when the price of the commodity rises, the quantity supplied rises. So it is the upward sloping. What are the forces behind the supply curve? One major element underlying the supply curve is the cost of production. We all know that every goods is produced requires land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur. So these are the four factors of production which need to create the supply of the goods. So when the production cost for a good are low relative to the market price, it is profitable to produce more. The cost of production means when the price of the commodity is commodity is 20 rupees, but its market price is 25 rupees. So we get the profit of rupees 5 rupees. It means when the cost of the production is less than the market price, the supply curve is tend to rise. When production costs are high relative to price, firms produce little, switch over to the other goods of the production, or maybe simple go out of business. Another is a technological advance. Technological advance means if the automobiles were produced with the laborer, they make they produce very little quantity of automobiles. But if they upgrade their plant and apply the machinery, and all the computer systems in their plant, the supply of the automobiles will rise. It means that the technological advances will make the supply more, will make retain the supply to rise. When the technology is applied, it takes very few hours to produce the goods. Then it would produce when labels would be applied. The other is the price of the related goods. Supply is also influenced by the price of the related goods. It means the particularly that the alternative outputs of the production process. It means that if the demand for other goods or related goods rise, then the supply of that good will be risen. Suppose, for example, if the factory is manufacturing the automobiles, but now they will produce the automobiles. But suppose they automobiles and suppose there is a rise in the demand for cars, but it means for four-wheelers. So they will change their plan or increase the supply of the four-wheelers. So this means the price of the related goods affects the supply or shift rightward, means left to right. Another is the government policy. The government policy also has an important influence on supply curve. The we know about the labor wages that there must be some minimum wage requirement to be paid to the laborers. So it is the government policy that the minimum wage should be paid to the laborers. But if there's a situation that the government relaxes this policy and go through the wage cut, then there will be there will be low with the cost of the production and more quantities will be supplied at the same price. So the government trade policies have a major impact upon the aspects. Government regulation influence both number of the firms that can compete and price they charge. There are certain regulations on certain quantities that the government decide the prices of the commodity. There are certain factors like the others are the special factors. Special factor means market structure will supply an expectation about the future prices that have an important impact on supply decision. The weather forecast and important influence on farming. That we have the farming is majorly dependent on monsoon. So there are certain um, exerts or expectations about the it means that if there is a good rainfall, then there's expectation that there will be good rainfall, then there will be the supply of more rain-related crops. So this is the special factor that influence the supply curve. The shift in the supply curve. Many factors shift the supply curve that when changes in the factors other than goods price, quantity supplied, we call these changes as the shift in the supply. When automobile price change, producers change their production and quantity supplied. However, the supply and the supplier do not shift. But there are certain factors that shift the supply curve from left to right, rightwards. Supply would increase if the production of cost-saving, computerized design, and manufacturing reduces the labor required to produce the car. As we discussed earlier, that the computer systems tend to make production very easy. So there are more quantities to be produced with the help of the computer systems. So there is a rightward shift in from SS curve to S dash S dash due to the certain factors in the supply. And next comes to the equilibrium of supply and demand. As we seen that the quantity supplied rises with the increase of the price, and the quantity demanded falls with the rise in the price. So there is an inverse relationship between the quantity demanded and price, and there's a direct relationship between the quantity supplied and price. हमने देखा कि क्वांटिटी डिमांड जो है वो बढ़ता है फॉल इन द प्राइस, प्राइस कम होने से, और क्वांटिटी सप्लाइड बढ़ता है प्राइस बढ़ने से. So where this we have also seen the supply curve, means the supply curve rises from left to right and demand curves falls from left to right falls. So when they meet, exactly they meet, it is the equilibrium of supply and demand. The market price will come at the point where the quantity demanded is equal to the quantity supplied. They both meet at the point where demand and supply is equal or both and nullify the effect. And generally it happens in perfect competition. Perfect competition means there are certain commodity, मतलब हम कुछ भी एक प्राइस दे दें कि भाई रेफ्रिजरेटर, तो रेफ्रिजरेटर की प्राइस जो मार्केट में है वो सभी जगह मोर और लेस सेम मिलती है, कोई भी कमोडिटी, इफ देयर इज अ परफेक्ट कंपटीशन. So if we look at this graph, we see that the both SS is the supply curve, DD is the demand curve. We see that they both meet at point C. It means demand and supply are equal and they nullify their effect. It means at the price of rupees 30, the quantity demanded and quantity supplied is equal. It means it comes to the 12, 13, 14, 15. Which means the equilibrium price is 12 millions at the price of 30 per box. So if we keep the price rupees 10 rupees, then there is a shortage. मतलब डिमांड ज्यादा रहेगा और सप्लाई कम रहेगी, तो शॉर्टेज रहेगा. लेकिन इफ दे मीट above the 30 rupees price, suppose they are 40 rupees पे अगर हम प्राइस रखते हैं, तो there will be quantity supplied more than the quantity demanded. Supply more रहेगा और quantity कम, demanded कम रहेगी, मतलब there will be the surplus between the demand and supply. So if we don't want either supplies, if we want neither surplus nor shortage, then it will be the equilibrium point where the quantity demand and quantity supplied are equal. So this will be the equilibrium point where the quantity supplied and quantity demanded will be equal, and there will be no shortage and no surplus. This is called the market equilibrium at the intersection of supply and demand. Thank you. अगर ये वीडियो आपको अच्छा लगा हो तो ये चैनल इन्फॉर्मेटिव टेक्स्ट को लाइक कीजिए, शेयर कीजिए, सब्सक्राइब कीजिए. चलिए मिलते हैं हमारे नेक्स्ट वीडियो में.